Hello, I'm Esther Githu-Yuot. It's Thursday, August 11th. This is Africa 54.
Two days after Kenya's presidential election, the race is still too close to call. Official election results must be announced within 1 week of Tuesday's vote. Dozens die in anti-government protests in Sierra Leone as hundreds flood the streets of Freetown in frustration at economic hardships. And African wildlife officials are meeting in Rwanda this month for the first ever Africa Protected Areas Congress, as fast-spreading urbanization threatens the continent's biodiversity.
Kenyans are anxiously awaiting the results of the Tuesday hotly contested presidential race between outgoing Deputy President William Ruto and veteran opposition politician Raila Odinga.
Millions of Kenyans are waiting to see who will become their next president. President Uhuru Kenyatta is exiting the State House in Nairobi after 2 terms in office. Media houses in Kenya show varied vote tallies for Odinga 77 and Ruto 55, raising tensions among the electorate. The chairman of Kenya's Electoral Board, Wafula Chebukati, while acknowledging the slow counting of votes, says forms uploaded on the Electoral Commission's website will only show the final valid vote count. Voter turnout was low compared to previous elections, with only 14 million voters casting their ballots out of 22 million registered voters. Former Tanzanian President Jakaya Mrisho Kikwete, an election observer, reacted to the unusual low turnout.
I cannot ramble about turnout. You cannot push the CTS to come. That's your pastime now, not mine. Mine is... They've been allowed to vote. Nobody was restricted, prevented from voting. The process was calm, peaceful, orderly. So if somebody has chosen not to exercise his or her right to elect their leader, well.
To win Kenya's presidency, a candidate must have more than half of all votes cast and at least 25% of votes cast in 25 of Kenya's 47 counties. If there is no clear winner, the Electoral Board, in line with the Constitution, must call for a runoff between the 2 top contenders. The Electoral Board must also adhere to strict guidelines from the Supreme Court to verify all ballots from every constituency received at the National Tallying Center in Nairobi before releasing them as official results. The board then has 1 week to announce final results. Tuesday's election included the legislative and local authorities. At this time, both Ruto and Odinga have garnered more than 6 million votes. The other 2 presidential candidates, George Wajakoya and David Waihiga Mwaure, have 57,000 and 29,000 votes, respectively.
And for the very latest Kenyan election news and notes, let's go live to Africa 54 managing editor Vincent Makori, who is standing by in Nairobi. Vincent, bring us up to speed. What's the latest there?
Well, the very latest right now is that the IEBC, the Independent and Boundaries Commission, has started now releasing the results from each constituency. And that is what they're going to be doing. They have advised against people making assumptions or concluding who is leading by watching television, but rather focus on the results that have been verified and authenticated by the Electoral Commission. So now they're going constituency by constituency to show you who garnered how many votes in each constituency, what percentage, and they'll continue doing that until such a time as when they have completed releasing all the results from every constituency, and then they will give the total count and declare who has won this election and who lost.
Vincent, a very tight race here. What is the mood of Kenyans as we speak?
Well, generally, most Kenyans have a sense of impatience and a little bit of anxiety. But to a large extent, everybody is hopeful and maintaining their cool and calm. I went down to the streets of Nairobi to just kind of gauge the temperature of people. And I spoke to a number of people. Why don't we take a listen to this?
Okay, somehow it looks as if it is taking long, yes, but as we all know as Kenyans, the only body that has been given the authority and mandate to give us the final tally is IBC. So no matter what, we shall just have to wait for the IBC to give us the final tally according to the presidential elections. But what I can tell my fellow Kenyans is just be patient, because at the end of the day, we shall have a president. So I think regardless of maybe thinking as if it is taking long or maybe it is very fast, but to me, it has taken, yes, long, but we have to give them time so that they can give us the correct figures with regards to the presidential polls.
According to the votes, people casted their votes very well. It has been very peaceful, but now we are told that the announcement cannot be made now. It's the work of the IBC, so we just have to wait. We can't just jump to things. So let's wait so that the IBC also can do their final job and we get the best result. Whoever will win will appreciate. And we thank Kenyans for the peaceful election. We have to move on.
Just like we have heard from the chairman of the IEBC, I think we'll just wait for the final tally from them, and hoping, like they said, it should tally at the end of the day, whatever the media stations are showing and what they have as the final tally should all match up. Yeah. Thank you.
So as you see, people on the streets of Nairobi indeed expressing their views, and you can tell that they're all maintaining the patience that they need to maintain at this time, and also hoping for the best as they look forward to the final announcement in the coming days.
And briefly, Vincent, what are analysts predicting, a runoff or a solid lead from one of the two top contenders?
At the moment, it's very hard indeed to see a solid lead. It looks more like a runoff, but again, you never know what the few millions of votes that have not come in will do to the current count that we have. So you never know. Everybody's very cautious. They're saying, let's wait and see. It could go either way.
Vincent, thanks. Africa 54 Managing Editor Vincent Makori reporting live from Nairobi, Kenya. Dozens have died in anti-government protests in Sierra Leone, according to police and other sources. At least 6 police officers and 21 civilians were killed as hundreds took to the streets of Freetown in frustration at economic hardship and a perceived failure by the government to cushion the impact of rising prices. Protesters threw rocks and burned tires over the worsening economic conditions in an effort to stem the violence. The West African country, struggling with rising inflation and a fuel crisis, has imposed a nationwide curfew that began at 3 p.m. local time on Wednesday.
These unscrupulous individuals have embarked on a violent and unauthorized protest which has led to the loss of lives of innocent Sierra Leoneans, including security personnel. It is also reported that public buildings, including police stations, have been attacked and burned down in various parts of the country. Therefore, the government wishes it to be known that as a country of law and order, these violations are unacceptable in all their forms.
One analyst said discontent has been boiling over in Sierra Leone for a number of reasons, including a perceived lack of government support for ordinary people who are struggling.
The profit we are supposed to have is not there anymore. We're suffering. Even to get food is difficult. Our husbands are not working. We're the ones paying house rent and taking care of the home. We have a bag of rice. We're buying it at 500 SLL. 5 gallons of locally produced palm oil. We're buying at 320 SLL. 5 gallons imported groundnut oil. We're buying at 500,000 SLL. All the profits we're supposed to get from selling, we are not having that. Now we're straining. Even food, we can't afford it. That's exactly why we're asking the government to reduce prices on all commodities. Now even 10,000 SLL is not enough for lunch for our children. Initially, we used to give them 5,000. But with the high cost of living standards, the government were straining. And the suffering is too much.
The regional political and economic bloc ECOWAS is condemning the violence and called in a Twitter post for all to obey law and order and for the perpetrators of the violence to be identified and brought before the law. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is wrapping up his 3-nation tour of Africa in Rwanda. On Thursday in Kigali, he rebuked Rwandan authorities over democracy and human rights concerns, saying the Central African country may not reach its full potential without opening up political space and protecting freedoms. Blinken said the United States recognizes Rwanda's incredibly difficult history of the 1994 genocide, but believes that the criminalization of opposition political figures undermines the country's overall peace and stability. Secretary Blinken and Rwandan Foreign Minister Birota also commented on the dispute between Rwanda and Congo over the DRC rebel group M23.
I discussed the credible reports indicating that Rwanda continues to support the M23 rebel group and has its own forces inside the DRC. We recognize that Rwanda has security concerns of its own, including reports of cooperation between the Congolese military and the Democratic Forces for the Liberation of Rwanda, the DFLR, an armed group. My message to both President Tshisekedi and President Kagame this week has been the same. Any support or cooperation with any armed group in eastern DRC endangers local communities and regional stability.
Rwanda is not the cause of long-standing instability in eastern DRC, where we have over 130 armed groups, including the M23. And the presence of the FDLR and the close collaboration with the army of the DRC has always been the most significant cause of insecurity. And this enables the FDLR to conduct terrorist operations on Rwandan territory, something government of Rwanda cannot accept. And Rwanda, we always reserve the right to take necessary measures to protect its integrity, its territorial integrity, its sovereignty, and to ensure the security of its people. This being said, Rwanda remains committed to the processes mandated by the African Union and other regional organizations, which we hope the United States will continue to support for all of us to bring lasting peace to Eastern DRC and to the entire region. Thank you.
Both Rwanda and Congo deny the charges of backing rebel groups. Mali's military government has confirmed Islamist militants killed 42 of its troops last weekend in Tessit in a sophisticated drone attack. The government also announced 3 days of national mourning starting Thursday. At midnight, the mourning period is declared throughout the national territory in tribute to the civilian and military victims of the terrorist attack. The announcement came the same day Mali's military leader, Colonel Assimi Goïta, spoke with Russian President Vladimir Putin about support from the Kremlin. Tunisia's new and controversial constitution goes into effect later this month, cementing the vast power seized a year ago by its author, President Kais Saied. Lisa Brandt reports.
What's next for Tunisia? Will President Kais Saied deliver on his promises to build jobs, stability, and prosperity, and also keep the freedoms won in the country's 2011 revolution? Saied says his new constitution, which sharply strengthens presidential powers and weakens legislative and judicial ones, will end years of political gridlock. His supporters hope he's right.
We have lived a decade of darkness. We can't live another decade like that. We are hoping things will get better.
Tunisia's rocky post-revolution transition has only gotten rockier in recent months. The war in Ukraine has hiked up prices for bread and energy, deepening poverty. Mohammed earns about 20 cents filling these bags for recycling.
City an icon. Before, Tunisia was the icon of the Arab world. Of course, it was a police state, but we had work. We lived well. Now we're being hit in the stomach.
Critics warn Sayed's constitution is a U-turn back to a police state. They point to eroding civil liberties this past year and question the referendum's results.
Nobody is able to say no to Kais Saied. He controls the judiciary, the National Assembly, the administration. He rules like a pharaoh.
Analysts say Sayed's immediate challenge is delivering on bread and butter priorities.
If he improves the economical and social conditions, probably he will be re-elected. Otherwise, if his only obsession is constitution and election and without any economical and social agenda, probably the country is going to enter into crisis.
Whether Sayed can secure another International Monetary Fund loan to shore up the economy and sell its required austerity measures will be crucial. Tunisia's powerful national trade union opposes tough reforms. It threatens to strike next week, possibly foreshadowing more social unrest to come. How much Sayed can count on Tunisia's security forces is another unknown.
It seems like most of Tunisia's police state is still with him, and it seems like many of parts of Tunisia's military are also with him. If the Tunisian public spiraled into a state of chaos, where there were protests all over the country threatening the country's security, the military might make a recalculation.
For now, with his vastly expanded powers, analysts say, President Sayed has no one else to blame if things go wrong. Lisa Bryant for VOA News, Tunis.
We would like to hear what you think about Africa 54 and all our VOA Africa programs on our website at voaafrica.com. Still to come, Rwanda restores a degraded wetland in Kigali to promote nature conservation. We'll be right back.
Many women want to start or change careers but find reasons why they can't or shouldn't. Despite varying obstacles, there are many success stories. On this week's episode of Our Voices, we'll examine some of the challenges and success that African women experience on the continent and in the diaspora on their journey to entrepreneurship. Join the conversation each week right here on Our Voices.
From around the world. Let's go.
Health, wellness, sport, beauty, medical breakthroughs. Healthy Living cares about your well-being. What are the main health concerns in Africa and around the world? Find out the latest on coronavirus. Connect with our experts and ask them questions.
How long does the virus stay?
Join me, Linor Moudou, in Washington, every week on Healthy Living, right here on VOA.
In other African news, Senegal's paramilitary police arrest 143 migrants in 2 seaside swoops as they prepared to embark for Europe. Mounting attacks from jihadists and criminal gangs are creating a headache for Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari as he looks to finish his last 6 months in office. And Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed kick-started electricity production from the second turbine at its controversial mega dam on the Blue Nile Thursday, despite continuing objections by Egypt and Sudan. African wildlife officials.
Eco Park is Rwanda's first ever urban park, located in the capital city of Kigali.
African wildlife officials meeting in Rwanda this month for the first ever Africa Protected Areas Congress noted the fast-spreading urbanization threatens the continent's biodiversity. Senanu Todd reports from Kigali.
The Nyandungu Eco Park is Rwanda's first ever urban park, located in the capital city of Kigali. It is a 121-hectare property made up of a wetland and a forest. Authorities say the park will help promote conservation among urban communities and educate children about protecting nature.
Its role is to play as an ecotourism park, but there's also a recreational and educational aspect to it. So within the park, we have a medicinal garden, whereby we've actually planted, indigenous tree species. And the idea for this is to really ensure that we are also regenerating, indigenous tree species. And so through this, we organize tours, and we'll be organizing tours with, schools.
The park opened to the public in July, after a 6-year process to restore it from a degraded wetland. Officials say structures were built on the delicate wetland, and it was used for livestock and agriculture, damaging it. To salvage the area, Rwandan authorities say they worked with residents, some whose livelihoods depended on the area, to develop a model that supports both urbanization and conservation.
So what we did when we were developing the park, we made sure that the jobs that we created and the people that we gave the jobs to during the works that were going on were actually those same local communities. So in the end, the park is really not a product of the Ministry of Environment or the Rwanda Green Fund, or it's something that everybody has worked on.
This model, according to the International Union for Conservation of Nature, is a sustainable way to develop African cities while preserving Africa's biodiversity.
Africa is fast developing, and the tension is there between development and conservation. For example, lots of infrastructure development. But actually we're trying to say here that needs to be resolved. It doesn't have to be development or conservation. We are saying development for conservation and conservation for development.
To achieve this, officials say there must be a review of how much financing governments in Africa are providing for conservation and development projects.
We need to move away from the old paradigm where protected areas or basically diversity conservation was basically looking at only one source of financing. And this source of financing was mainly grants from overseas development assistance. But we're trying to say that there needs to be, first of all, governments themselves allocating more resources towards protected areas, because these are strong, they provide value to the economy.
Rwandan authorities say the model that blends public and private funding works well, and they will continue to use it to restore other conservation sites. Sana Anutod for VOA News, Kigali, Rwanda.
Translation and language learning giants like Google and Duolingo are expanding their language databases available online in a push to widen representation and reduce bias in artificial intelligence systems. Residents in countries like Uganda, where the native tongue Luganda is not taught in schools, say adding their languages to these platforms could be a game changer. Clara Frank has more.
Kampala resident Hussein Barmal is originally from India. He has fought a lifelong battle to understand Luganda, Uganda's official language. Despite being spoken by millions, Luganda is not taught in schools. Barmal says he has struggled to find resources to study the language he hears on street corners. But now his struggles may be over. Luganda was one of 24 languages added to Google Translate last month. Barmal says the announcement filled him with excitement.
It was exciting for me because as I finally now know that there's a translator app available. Yes, we have Luganda dictionaries in bookshops and things like that, but there are very few resources on the internet. So there are some Luganda handbooks and some material, very little material online to learn Luganda, but there's not a proper translation app or service which we can use. So that's amazing.
The new batch includes 10 sub-Saharan African languages, bringing the number of African languages on the profile to 23. Ugandan internet technology student Andrew Njuki spent his childhood hunched over English language textbooks and grappling with material that would have been easier to grasp in his native language. He says the instant translations available on his phone will help bridge that gap.
I think it is a great opportunity for us, and for students like me, I think it's really good, because for anyone to understand something better, you need to first understand it in your mother tongue, and then you can get it better.
Translation and language learning giants like Google and Duolingo have joined nonprofit-led efforts to expand the language databases available online. Duolingo, which currently offers 8 underrepresented languages out of 40, is working to add Zulu and Xhosa, spoken by 20 million people mainly in South Africa. Clara Frank, VOA News, Washington.
Police in Rio de Janeiro are on the hunt for 6 people accused of involvement in stealing 16 artworks valued at more than $137 million, some of which were recovered. Police said in a statement that the group stole their works from the residence of an 82-year-old widow who had been married to an art collector and dealer. The haul included museum-quality pieces from Brazilian masters Tarsila do Amaral and Emiliano di Cavalcanti. The theft was allegedly orchestrated by the widow's daughter. She allegedly helped accomplices gain entry into the residence unimpeded and remove the artworks. The daughter was among those arrested Wednesday. That's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.